we have had lots of questions, 37 questions that our wise owls at the FMTA have put together into 3 questions. So I'm going to read the 3 summaries of 3 questions and invite each of the 5 panelists to answer any one of their choosing, but you only have 90 seconds. So you have to think on your feet and very quickly, just so that we can commit to stay on track with our 8:30 promised finished. So now question number 1 is, many people in the chat are asking about the definition of affordable housing. In a few words, how do the panelists believe we should define affordable housing, for whom and for how long? A second question is, a lot of interest in the chat about land value and municipal regulations. Why does the city have to pay market value for land when market prices are being pushed up arbitrarily by developers, REITs, and the financialization of the housing market? Can the city regulate this, and how can it regulate it? And thirdly, what are your thoughts on the effectiveness of public-private partnerships when it comes time to securing affordable housing? What role could nonprofits play in securing affordable housing? Let's go backwards and start with Grayson. 90 seconds to 2 minutes. What do you think of those 3 questions?
Okay, thank you. I'll try to be fast. I think I can maybe get through.
Wait, slow down. I want to be able to hear what you say, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
A bit slower. I'll answer the first one about the question of how I would define affordable. I mentioned this in my report. I would say affordable should be tied to income. It should be 30% of your income-ish. I mean, it could be 5% of your income. I guess I just wouldn't go over 30% is how I would define it. And it should be for everybody and for as long as they are renting a home, is my quick short answer to that question.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Cheryl, maybe pick another question. Over to you.
So I'll answer 2. So the first is that, or I'll answer the one I remember, actually, I forgot the second. So I would define affordable housing as what is affordable to the individual. So people who, for example, if you make an income of, if you're on WSP or whatever, ODSP, 30% of your income might make sense, it might not make sense. I just want whatever allows people to live a decent life and to have some free money to go out and enjoy arts and culture. I think arts and culture is one of the things that make life worth living. That might be, paying for your internet or being able to go to a show, right? Those are so important for having a vibrant, healthy community. The second question I'm remembering now is about public-private partnerships. In the public-private partnership, the private partner shouldn't be getting a sweet deal where they end up making more money than perhaps they would have otherwise. The private partner, in many cases, should be looking to, in a way, donate or provide services that allow them to break even or to develop a very modest profit.
Maybe next we could go to Martine.
Hi, so I'll also talk to the same 2 questions that have already been answered. I think some of us maybe forget the second one. But yes, I agree. Housing affordability is one of these issues that's being discussed right now. And there's an interesting shift that happened in our history where we used to define, the way we used to define affordable housing was gearing it to one's income. And if you paid more than 30% of your income towards housing, that housing was considered to be unaffordable. And back even further, we had lower thresholds. At one point it was 25%, and before that 20%. So the definition keeps changing. We've recently shifted away from defining affordability based on one's income, and we're now defining it based on the market. So you'll see that in a lot of government programs, affordable is defined as a certain percent of average market rents, 100% of average market rents, or 80% of average market rents. That's not affordable. And so I think these are really good questions. I saw them all in there. I saw Augustri ask that question, and I'm really excited that we get a chance to talk about it. And this is something that we should really be pushing on. Otherwise, all these affordable housing programs that we're getting are giving us housing that, people who are getting pushed out to build that affordable housing can't even live in. I'll just really briefly talk about the PPPs, public-private partnerships. I don't see why there's much need to have private partners involved in delivering affordable housing. We got to eliminate the middleman, which is the one that is taking a profit from it, and provide this housing in a way where it is affordable for people who live in it, and there's no need to actually have that segment of the money going to the private sector partner just as profit.
Great, thank you. Craig, over to you. Maybe the second question was around why does the city have to pay market value? And does it have any tools to not pay market value when it
I'd love
buys?
to just, I asked about the Vancouver situation to our city as well, hearing that there was some buildings that were taken for $1. I'm sure they're going to find their way into court and they're going to have a long, lengthy court battle and it might go pretty high. But effectively, in a lot of the cities don't have the legislative power necessarily to do such things and their property rights involved there. I'm not a lawyer. I don't have specialities in that, but we're sort of stuck with some of our expropriation laws the way they are in regards to other property laws. So that's a frustration. Even in Montreal and Quebec, I don't know if you have the same powers in Toronto. We have land freezes where we call it réserve foncière, where you can actually freeze a piece of land that you want to negotiate before you have to expropriate. And if you just freeze the land, and we can do that in Montreal, we can do that for 4 years before you actually expropriate. Just freezing the land, you're sort of halting the development rights. And so if you don't end up buying by agreement or expropriating, then they can come sue you for taking away their development rights within the 4 years. So we were still lacking that power. But I think the big important thing is the levels of government have to be mobilized. And so governments who are mobilized, levels that are, can push. And if all three levels are mobilized, well, they can create more opportunities, purchase more land together, make better programs. That's all possible, but we need that mobilization at all three levels.
Great, thank you. And last but not least, Kristyn, any thoughts on any of those three questions?
Yeah, no, thank you, Joe, and thank you to all of you for your answers. They were so eloquent. With respect to the P3 model, which is the public-private partnership, I absolutely agree with Martine, is that we have to be able to remove the private piece because we've been fed this incredible scoop of ice cream that only the private sector can deliver housing or any type of public infrastructure, and because we transfer the risk to them, and it's hogwash. But the problem here has always been the upper orders of government, whether it be the province or the national government, has oftentimes compelled cities to engage in private-public partnerships if we want their money. So therefore, if Toronto wants money from Ontario, we have to use their deliver of construction, which is Infrastructure Ontario, which goes out to the market. So we're stuck if we want their money. When it comes to land values and stripping away the profit center for the property owner, I don't know how that is done without us becoming a totalitarian state. There are places in the world where you can, as a government, seize the private assets of a company or perhaps nationalize land or utilities. We don't have those, well, we do have those powers, but we don't necessarily have those powers when it comes to trying to seize that from the private citizen or what have you. And I think that we would have to really flip our model upside down. The one thing I would put out there, and I'm just going to finish on this, is that we need to treat housing like healthcare. Housing should be a function, a social function that belongs to each and every single one of us. And if we then turn the paradigm upside down, I think we will be able to then repurpose the whole conversation that allows us to think of housing as a true right, just like water, just like healthcare, like education. And then it's no longer the same type, left to the same forces of market debate. And I'll stop there.
Great, thank you, Kristyn. And it's approaching 8:30, our agreed to time to close. I want to just thank everyone on this panel, Kristyn, Craig, Cheryl, Martine, Grayson. That was one heck of a great conversation. A lot of lights were going on in my head as to possibilities and options and ways to really expand our horizon around how we see affordable housing in this city, in this province, and in this country. So thank you to the panelists on behalf of all of the attendees. I want to pass it on now, the electronic baton to Chiara Padovani, the amazing Chiara, and she'll speak on what is next. Over to you, Chiara.
Thank you, Joe, and thank you to all of our panelists for that very stimulating discussion on the future of housing in Toronto and across this country. We heard a lot in the discussion about the challenges that we're facing in Toronto and in Montreal and in other cities in Canada. And if you're a tenant and you're living in this housing crisis, it can feel extremely isolating. It can feel really alone. And now during COVID, even more so. But I just want to take a moment to say that you're not alone. And together we are strong. And in fact, the Federation of Metro Tenants Associations was founded on that principle, that together we are strong. And so on behalf of the FMTA, I wanted to take a moment to invite everyone who was participating, who tuned in, to think about and reflect on some of the things that we talked about during the panel and how we can put that into action. And that's going to look different for different people and different groups. But here at the FMTA, I wanted to invite you to take action in one of three ways. And I'm going to be dropping some links into the chat, so do stick around to tune in. The first way is that you can take part in our tenant school. It's starting tomorrow, and it is a great way to learn about your rights as a tenant and how to organize. The link will be in the chat for everyone to see. The second way is to volunteer for the FMTA. You know, we would love to have you on your team. We are trying to build a bigger movement of tenants and tenant power in the city. And then the final thing is, I have always believed that the single most important thing we can do in a response to this housing crisis is to organize. And that is organizing on your street, in your building, organizing a tenant association. And so I'm gonna add also in the chat some resources from the FMTA. I know that can sound like a daunting task to organize a tenant association, but lean on us, contact us, use the resources and the toolkits that we have, because that's how we are stronger together. And without further ado, I would like to now turn it over to Jean-Michel for closing remarks from the Robarts Center for Canadian Studies.
Thanks, Chiara, and thanks to our panelists, Kristyn, Cheryll, Martine, Craig, Grayson, as well as our moderator, Joe, for an insightful event. Thanks also to the FMTA, the City Institute, for their collaboration in hosting this important and timely discussion, as well as the organizers, including Jessica, Chiara, Patricia, William, but also Pamela Fan, Laura Tamman, and Alex Felipe at the Robarts Center for Canadian Studies. On behalf of the Robarts Center and its Civis Research Cluster, I hope you will keep an eye on future events and initiatives we are planning to better understand urban governance and citizenship in Canada. We will also send all of you a follow-up email after the event with more information on Civis, as well as the FMTA and the City Institute. It's now time to close the event, so thanks to the audience for your attention, interest, and participation, and I wish you all a wonderful evening. Good night, everyone.